Every day, they answer the call. They see what most people will never see. They carry moments most people will never understand. But when the call ends, who is there for them?
911, what's your emergency?
Today, on a special episode of Mine on the Line, we go one-on-one with Mark Junkerman and his first responder journey that led him to develop the theory of the ocean is the ocean. A retired law enforcement lieutenant, U.S. Army veteran, and nationally respected leader in the first responder wellness community, Mark has spent decades helping police officers, firefighters, EMS professionals, dispatchers, and military personnel build resilience through peer support, critical incident stress management, and compassionate leadership. Today, we'll explore what it really takes to take care of those who spend their lives caring for others. Here's that interview.
Mark, thanks for being here. I very much appreciate you being on the show. I know we've been talking about this for a long time to get a podcast going, but thank you for your time, brother, and thank you for being here. This really is a special occasion.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this myself, and, kudos to what you're doing, and it's great setup and all the good work you're doing as well, my friend.
Well, I appreciate that, my friend. And ladies and gentlemen, Mark Junkerman, he's going to go through his background and introduce himself, but career law enforcement officer, now retired, lifetime first responder, military, so we have a military connection with Mark as well. He's done remarkable things for first responders in the recovery area, peer support, critical incident stress management. And as always, like we do on the show, we ask our guests to give a little bit about themselves, their career, some of the things they've been exposed to, and a little bit of your story. Some people want to give the story, some people don't. But yeah, who's Mark?
Yeah, Mark Junkerman. Most people just call me Junk. It's just kind of the way it is. I tell people it's weird till it's not, so it's absolutely fine. Yeah, I retired from active service in 2021. I have 33 overlapping years of military and law enforcement experience. Served in the Army as an enlisted soldier and also a commissioned officer, and I worked for a suburban full-service sheriff's office in the Baltimore metro area. So I had a lot of great experience, worked a lot of patrol, was a SWAT officer, worked numerous task force, joint intelligence task force, federal task force, did a little bit of drug work here and there. But probably the pinnacle event, or really the most impactful event, was I at one point was tasked to lead our crisis intervention team. So that gave me an introduction into community behavioral health as well as first responder wellness. And, the running joke at the time was I went from Mutant Ninja Turtle to Care Bear in 2 seconds. But I have to tell you, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me. So I was able to spend over 2 decades in that wellness space, the CIT, and then evolving into peer support, was able to provide support on literally hundreds of critical incidents, helping fellow first responders, not just law enforcement first responders. When I retired, I just happened to be supporting a program in Richmond, Virginia, sort of a retreat similar to this.
Sure.
And that's where I met Cammie. And kind of the old thing where, she let me into the house and I won't get off her couch. So I don't know if she adopted me or I adopted her, but yeah, we hit it off. Great lady, great presentation, tons of knowledge, tons of passion. So since about the second retreat or so, since I guess 2022, I've been coming out to Chicago on a regular basis to support the retreat. However, she and Haymarket need me to. So,
yeah, that's and you've done a lot of things over your career, and I've listened to your story and your presentations over the time. The connection with Haymarket, was there a single event that got you connected with Haymarket, or was it something that said through your research, say, hey, you know what, this would be a good organization to help responders?
It was just by chance. It was a great meeting engagement. I was asked to support this event in Richmond, like I said, in 2021. I was working with a largish international agency that provided peer support. I was part of their faculty, and one of their premier doctors, a premier doctor in the field, a guy by the name of Jeffrey Mitchell, who invented the CISM model, was presenting there. Long story short, the collective, they had heard of some of the work, that I had done, and I was regional, and they needed a peer to support that. Asked if I would come down, and it just so happened that Cammie was at that same retreat. So that's how I met, just by I guess first time I ever bought a scratch off and I hit. So it's kind of a win-win.
That's a great metaphor. I like that. When you first got engaged with the organization, you came to your first retreat, which you were here at the start in August 2022, I think it was, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I was at the first retreat, but I was here at the very let's say onset, the inception of this. And in fact, the first retreat, I was as much a participant as I was, let's say, supporting. I was more of an exploration. So that was a great experience as well, because I actually was immersed in the program myself before I was, let's say, supporting staff here. So
yeah. What really impressed you? And we'll talk about your premier signature presentation.
Yeah.
The ocean will always be the ocean, and we're going to get into that in a second. What had you come here with that presentation, or was that something you developed based on your experience after you attended the first retreat?
So I was on for lack of a better term, the national circuit for about 4 years. So I was doing multiple presentations in multiple venues. People like, the National FOP, International Chiefs of Police, a group called First Responder Conferences, who I've done a lot of work with, that do regional conferences. So I had a number of packages, let's say, that were put together. But the real epiphany for me came when I was immersed in this program, and it opened up this concept, I guess what I would call my driving concept. I'm not a clinician. My experience and my background is leading soldiers and law enforcement professionals. Yeah. And my educational background, my graduate and a little bit of postgraduate work I did, is organizational management. So I look at this approach to wellness a little differently than maybe a psychologist would, or a clinician.
Sure.
And it comes down to three things, and this is what Haymarket, I think, does so well. In order for us to succeed, my opinion, in this wellness space, there's three components. There has to be an awareness component. We have to kind of understand what we're dealing with, and we have to recognize truly what not just what the significant impacts are, but what are some practical, scalable approaches to addressing them. We can't be Pollyanna.
Right. Yep.
The second phase is you have to have some action. And, we've done a lot of good work with awareness, and we keep doing that. But at some point, how much more aware can we be that there's a problem?
Without action.
I mean, put it on a billboard, which we've literally done. So, my sort of drive is that awareness is great, action is better. But we win by design, not by default. Yeah. So let's have a plan. Let's have a feasible plan. And then the last part of this is the application. And the application to me is driven by, it doesn't count unless you count it. We have to have some metrics. We have to have a way to say, we're aware of this situation. This sounds like a really good plan, but how does it actually work when the rubber hits the road?
And is it effective?
Exactly.
Is it working? You can't fix what you can't measure, or you can't. Yeah.
And that's it. That's I think sometimes where we lose it in the lights is we have really good intentions, and we have some awareness, and we have a plan, but either one of two things: we are actually not addressing what we think, or we can only do it once. It's a one-trick pony. Right. And it comes down to that, frankly, the scientific method, where you have to have validity and you have to have reliability. So, and we have to have that within again, my opinion, within the context of the culture of our first responders. And culture is not just the discipline. Culture is impacted by geography, by socioeconomics, by, there's a whole myriad of things. The way you police in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania is going to be different than the way you police in Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I think in order to have a successful shift in not just culture, but tradition, which to me drives culture, you have to be able to make this scalable and make it palatable to everybody. It's, we've heard it before. We're creating a buffet. There is no magic bullet. There is no silver bullet for wellness here. So.
Yeah. That's interesting and great segue into something you've created, this methodology, or I'll call it, well, I'm a methodology guy, so I don't know if it's a methodology, but you've created a perspective that you've coined. The ocean will always be the ocean, which I've heard many a times for our listeners. Mark is an avid speaker, or was an avid speaker on the national circuit for about 4 years, as he mentioned, but he comes to these Haymarket retreats, and it's good to see you back, because I haven't been to a few, but it's good to see you back. But this concept of the ocean will always be the ocean fascinated me when I first heard it. So yeah, for our listeners, this would be great.
Yeah, well, it's so some background. Yeah, I was on the speaking circuit, and I have to say I was treated very well. I worked with some great people. I worked with some great organizations. But in the course of the transition from active law enforcement service and then being out on the road, I frankly started to realize that I was falling into some of the same pitfalls and the same traps.
Yeah,
I had, in law enforcement. I was not as focused on asking myself on a daily basis, what's actually important now? What's important to me and what really matters? And what do I need to do versus what I want to do? Mm-hmm. And so one of the driving forces, or one of the reasons I've opted to step back, is to create more of a balance, because I'm out there talking about it. I want to try to emulate and live that. For a lot of years, as a peer provider, as a CISM provider, as a leader, a physical leader in agencies, and I suffered from a really debilitating disease, and it was called alligator mouth and hummingbird butt. I was saying all the things,
right.
But I wasn't living. So I kind of caught myself. That was part of it. So that led me to say, there's some things that I have some original material, and I have some ideas, and I have some things that I want to get out, because it's helped me heal, it's helped me grow. And it's kind of, I don't know if you want to call it my art. This is what I do. This is what helps me balance getting these ideas out and the presenting and the doing things. And we were talking while we were setting up a little bit, and I am not the brightest bulb. Like I said, my mom, God rest her soul, said, son, you're not the dumbest man, but when that guy dies, you may have a problem. So I try to work things into a metaphorical sense. And Haymarket was the perfect application for this, for a couple of reasons. First of all, it gave me a proving ground to test my own things, because no retreat is ever the same. There's a framework, there's a structure, there's a process, but the folks here, the team, they are masters at adapting to what the people in the room need at that time. So that was it gave me a lot of freedom. So I started thinking about this idea of what we talked about with, awareness and action application. And I was kind of like, why? It seems kind of simple, but sometimes we know the important things are always simple, but the simple things are always hard.
Right.
Like, why is this so hard? And, it started looking back on my own life, and, like a lot of first responders, for a long time, I got an A in cop and soldier, and I got a D in life. It cost me a lot. And they were, don't get me wrong, they were self-inflicted. I realize that now, but at the time, it was easier for me to to blame everything else than to actually take ownership for my own failings.
Yeah.
Because
the easy button.
right. I mean, first time every time, right? Second place,
Right.
just the first loser. This is what's
And
drilled in my
third
head.
place, nobody cares,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
right. I mean, who what? You know, what?
Right.
Yeah. I mean, so I was locked into that mentality, and it cost me because I had bought, for a lot of reasons, into this whole idea that I had a cape with a big S on it, and that I was going to be able to fix problems, and I was going to be able to solve problems because I had this badge and I had this training, and looking back now, as soon as you say you're going to fix something, you're making the assumption it's broken. So you're already
Right.
going in with a
Yeah.
negative,
And that
sort of
you have the
framing.
answer.
And then I have the answer, and then it wants
Yeah.
to be fixed.
Right.
You know, I mean, how many times have you been in a situation where you come in and you go, thank goodness I was there. I just saved your life. And they're like, thanks. I don't know. Okay. If you say so. So yeah. And I started to understand that that's what was getting in the way for me to go from, this, okay, I had the awareness, but it wasn't true awareness. It was my own bias. I was skewing things so it was palatable to me. And so I didn't have to do the work. And that was my first, let's say, mistake. I was never going to be able to engage with the action and the application if my awareness was not valid.
Yeah.
If my perception and my perspective was not necessarily wrong, because it's your perspective or perception, but it was not matching the data, the reality.
Yeah.
So how do I do this, and how do I think this through? So I had moved down to Ocean City, Maryland, and I go out. I'm very fortunate. I have a wonderful wife, retired law enforcement herself. We got twins. We have 3 great kids. We have 12 nieces and nephews. Got a grandson on the way. I mean, I am truly, in a position where I can literally go and walk on the beach every day. So, and that started to help me with to be able to, to regulate myself. And that's when this kind of idea hit me. When I got on the beach, and particularly in the morning when it was quiet and there's nobody there, and the winter is really cool because it's just a whole different vibe, And those waves would come in, and some days the water was blue, and some days the water was gray-green. And I felt so insignificant in the best of ways, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I looked out and I said, there is so much more to this world than my little piece of this sand right now. And I thought, the ocean's always going to be the ocean. The ocean's been here for thousands of years before me. It's going to be here thousands of years after me.
Yeah.
The ocean's always going to be the ocean. And I love the ocean. And I enjoy it because it's always the same, but it's always changing, because it can give you so much, but you also have to respect it. You're
Never turn your back on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You're never going to conquer the ocean.
Right.
You have to live in harmony with the ocean. And I kind of had this epiphany. I was like, well, that's it. That's what I'm missing. And maybe that's the messaging. The times when I went into the ocean of public safety, or the ocean of the military, or whatever ocean, and I jump in and I'm like, excuse me, ocean, do you know who I am?
Right.
Don't you see my shiny ribbons and my shiny, and my cape,
Right.
And the ocean went, hold my beer, watch this.
Yeah, right.
And kind of battered me around and spat me out on the sand, and I would be coughing and I'd get up and I'd realize I'd get on my knees and I'd raise my fist and I'd say, damn you, ocean, damn you to hell. And the ocean would just kind of go, huh. And, it wasn't until maybe, let's call him the salty sailor, came up and said, you okay? And I'm like, the ocean, it's horrible, it's evil, it's spit me out. And he said, do you know how to swim, son? And I went, And, the blame game, it was kind of dumb. I'm like, I'm blaming the ocean that is this thing that has been here, quote unquote, as far as I'm concerned, forever and will be here forever.
Long before you.
Yeah, this is this thing. And I am not only going to conquer it, but I don't even know how to swim. I'm not even giving it the respect to understand how to navigate it, how to.
Right.
That's just, what do you think's going to happen?
Yeah.
And so my concept of this first stage of wellness and this awareness piece is to embrace the fact that the ocean is always going to be the ocean. You're never going to conquer it, but you can learn to live in harmony. You can learn to swim. You can learn to sail. And most importantly, when the ocean becomes angry, there comes a time where you need to find a safe port or just get out of the water. That's the smartest thing you can do. So that became the driving theme for, my intro into whatever comes after awareness. And I tested it here and there, but Mark, it gave me, and I'll be so appreciative, not just the opportunity, but an incredible cadre of some of the smartest, most passionate people who could help me and gave me really good feedback about tweak this, adjust this, have you thought of this? And the ocean, I say the ocean is the ocean, is something that maybe it was my tagline, or I helped to, bring to fruition. Mm-hmm. But Haymarket, it's as much Haymarket's as it is mine, because it's not, they were the ones who helped me polish it and cut the facets in it. So,
yeah. And I'll tell you that, when I first heard it, when I came and I attended the retreat a few years ago, certainly not the in the very early stages, the very early retreats, but I heard that presentation. It really resonated with me. Your background resonated with me. And in terms of first responders recovery, or first, this awareness, mm-hmm. first piece, awareness, right? Bring awareness to the situation. And for our listeners, a lot of our listeners will say, okay, now that I'm aware, Mark, what are the first couple of things? What are the first three things that I can do, right? Resources. How do I'm suffering. What do I do? I know there's people, we talk a lot about tribe, and I've heard you say that a lot, right? Which is what this retreat offers people to become a part of. What are those first couple of things in terms of, now, okay, I know the ocean is out there. Mm-hmm. I'm in the water. Mm-hmm. Mark, what do I do?
And that's going to vary from person to person and situation to situation. And there is, like we talked about before, there is no silver bullet. There's no panacea. I can tell you what has helped me and what I have, for lack of a better term, coached and suggested. So the ocean is the ocean is part of a 3-part. Again, it's the song of that sage salty sailor, and the ocean is the ocean helps to remind you that not only are you embrace your significance through your insignificance, be humble. That creates a balance. So that first thing is, regardless of what you do, you have to have some kind of balance. So my first suggestion is find your center and see if you are actually in balance. And that can be as simple as just even looking, it's something as simple as looking at your calendar, looking at your sleep cycle, looking at your overtime, whatever. How balanced are you in the arenas that are important? What's important to you, and how balanced are you able to have your sea legs? Mm-hmm. Or are you just hanging on for the first wave that's going to knock you off the ship?
Knock you off the boat, yep.
Second thing is, I tell people we don't want to navigate with the horizon. The horizon is false. And so when that salty sailor was saying, well, why do you work so hard? Why do you go out there? Why do you? I said, because I'm trying to get to that. I'm trying to get to the horizon. And he said, let me show you something, son. Stand up. Take a step forward. What happened? The horizon changed. Take a step back. Yeah. The horizon changed. You're never going to reach the horizon. The horizon's always going to be elusive.
Right.
But what you can navigate on are the sun and stars. If you have a waypoint, if you have something that helps you keep on course, something that you can fix yourself. So now I'm balanced and I have my sea legs and I have a direction. If you can do those two things, that's going to help you start understanding how do you build this action plan. Then the last part, and some people aren't ready for this. This is for when, you're ready to do the work. It comes down to grit. And what I tell people with grit, what we'll talk about there this afternoon, is when you lose the wind, you got to take to the oars.
Yeah.
You got to do the work.
Good point. Yeah.
So, the three things for me are I got to make sure there's balance in my life. I have to have something that's bigger. I have to have a fixed point, something I believe in, something that's going to guide me. Even so, when I lose my way, I can get back on course. We're all going to come off course at some time.
Yeah.
And then this last part of grit and take to the oars, it comes down to a 3-part mantra that I call we have to go from me to we, where every morning I have to have a purpose. I have to take ownership for myself, warts and all. And once I take care of the me, now I can help the we. And I'm accountable to and for my peers. See, this idea of peer support and wellness is not just for clinicians and people who are trained and have school. Everybody is a peer. If you are taking care of the me, you are now responsible and have accountability to each other. And it comes down to Admiral McCraven talked about, he wrote books and the old make your bed.
Make your bed.
Yeah. Every morning it's a small win. So, if you circle back to what we talked about, those three things are important. Those are three things, but I think that most important thing is get up and make your bed. If you can do that, that's a small win. And that creates those habits that you can now build on. So that's what I would tell people.
Yeah, those are great points. And as I said, I heard that ocean, the ocean will always be the ocean concept here. It's helped people, people here at Hey Mark will often refer to that, or they'll say, come and see for yourself. Listen to that presentation when you're in town. Have you published any books, or have you published any, like on the ocean, have you published any written materials?
No, I haven't. A lot of this has just recently come to fruition. I don't know if that's something in the future. I have to be quite honest. I am quite content with less is more at this point in my life. I have achieved a nice balance of being able to, first of all, I'm very fortunate, where there's a lot more ability and time to do what I want versus what I need. So I've achieved sort of a balance that I'm happy with right now, where I work a little bit. I do volunteer work with some of the unhoused folks in my community. I work at a soup kitchen once a week. I work with a group called Operation We Care out of Salisbury, Maryland. A gentleman named Jeff Merritt. He's been doing it for about a decade now. And in that 10 years, I just started in the last couple of years with him, but he and his wife Di have sent over 40,000 packages to our soldiers, sailors, airmen,
Fantastic.
Marines, Coast Guard, Coasties, all across the world, all in theater. They're not folks, stationed at home. They're pushing packages out to where these troops are. So the short answer is no. Is that something that's in the future? I don't know. Right now, this is enough, and I'm pretty happy with sort of picking and choosing and sharing with the people whom I choose to. So,
well, that's great, and I know you're doing some stuff with veterans, and I follow you on some of the social media that you're doing and stuff like that. The organizations, the veterans work that you and your bride are doing with that, just absolutely fantastic. So, Mark, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sharing some of your knowledge and insight. Certainly the concept of the ocean will always be the ocean. And really, thank you for your time, brother. And it's great to see you again. Ladies and gentlemen, Mark Junkerman, good friend, lifetime first responder, beer drinker, hero of the oppressed.
Okay. I've never had that handle, but I'll you know what I mean?
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, my friend.
Really, really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you.
We'll see you with the next guest.
All right. Let's do some good.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Mine on the Line. If today's conversation resonated with you, we encourage you to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who may need to hear it. Every conversation helps break the stigma surrounding mental health and reminds those who serve that they are never alone. If you're a first responder, healthcare professional, dispatcher, veteran, or someone who supports those on the front lines, remember this: taking care of your own well-being is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign that allows you to continue serving others. Until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other. This is Mine on the Line, because no one carries this alone.